Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Democrats are dug in. 15 days into a government shutdown, Democrats show no sign that they're ready for it to end. Not even the prospect of military families going without a paycheck was enough for Democrats to reopen the government. Nor are Democrats concerned about needy families uncertain about the future of nutrition assistance, or Americans in flood zones who are unable to update their insurance or close on a home in the midst of hurricane season. No, Democrats are dug in. And all those Americans living in uncertainty, well, they're just going to have to wait until Democrats' far-left base is satisfied. Mr. President, Democrats attempt to defend their funding blockade by complaining that Republicans won't negotiate. But what exactly is there to negotiate? Negotiation happens when you have two sides, each with its own demands. Republicans have no demands. We've offered Democrats a clean, nonpartisan funding extension. Democrats, on the other hand, are insisting on $1.5 trillion in new partisan spending in exchange for their votes. Now think about that, Mr. President. Let's put this in perspective. $1.5 trillion in new spending in their proposal to keep the government open for 4 weeks till the end of October. Well, we're already at the middle of October. So basically, they're saying they want $1.5 trillion in taxpayer dollars to keep the government open for the next 2 weeks. Think about that one. As our colleague from Louisiana put it, you need a spreadsheet to keep track of everything they're asking for. The truth is that what Democrats really want is something Republicans can't give them. And that's the approval of their far-left base. They're looking for praise from the likes of MoveOn.org and Indivisible. This weekend, Indivisible is holding rallies around the country. And Democrats' motivations are laid bare by what one of the leaders of that far-left group told CNN last week. He said, and I quote, "I'm telling every elected I talk to, millions will be out cheering you on, or they'll be calling for new leadership." End quote. Cheering you on or calling for new leadership. Mr. President, that's Democrats' motivation. Pleasing their far-left base and preserving their political careers. Meanwhile, we're reading stories about military families lining up at food banks, flight delays because of understaffed airport towers, needy families uncertain about the food assistance they depend upon. But our Democrat colleague from Rhode Island says, and I quote, "For Democrats, it's so far, so good." End quote. So far, so good. I doubt military families and federal workers would agree. If there was ever anything to make it clear that Democrats are in this for their own political advantage, it is callous comments like this one, or the Democrat leader's statement that, and I quote, "every day gets better." End quote, for Senate Democrats. Mr. President, while Democrats may be basking in praise from their far-left base, polls show that most Americans want this shutdown to end. 2/3 of voters think Democrats should reopen the government rather than hold out for their partisan demands. And if just 5 more Democrats would show some courage, we could do just that. We need 5 more Democrats to say, enough is enough, to put the American people ahead of the far left, and to support this clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution sitting right there at the Senate desk, ready to be picked up and passed today, put on the President's desk, signed into law, and the government reopens. If just 5 more Democrats would show some courage, we could do just that. So, Mr. President, 5 more votes, this bill could be on its way to the White House. As I said, President Trump stands ready to sign it. It is clean. It is nonpartisan. It has no policy writers, no partisan gimmicks. It simply funds the government for a foreseeable time to November the 21st to give us an opportunity to finish the appropriations process under regular order and to deal with the funding of the government in the way that it should be funded, in an open, transparent process that uses the committees under regular order, the Appropriations Committee, subcommittees, the floor, open to amendments. Again, I know that's a novel concept. That's a novel concept compared to the way the Democrats did it when they had the majority. Even though the Appropriations Committee did its work last year, 11 of the 12 appropriations bills were reported out, not a single one was brought to the floor of the Senate. Because they like to negotiate behind closed doors with a handful of people deciding on behalf of everybody else. That is not the way this place ought to work, Mr. President. Troops need to get paid. Families need to get the help they need. All this uncertainty for the American people needs to go away. And we can get back to work on the things that really matter. But the question is, are Democrats interested in that? Or are they more interested in being cheered by far-left groups at Saturday's rally? Well, I guess we'll see soon enough. Will today be day 15 of Democrat shutdown? We'll have another opportunity later today to vote on that bill sitting right at the desk. 5 more Democrats, it passes. It goes to the White House, gets signed into law by the President, and the government opens up. Will today be day 15 of Democrat shutdown? Or will it be the day we reopen the government and get back to the business of serving the American people? Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Democrat Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it's now been over 2 weeks since Republicans shut the government down because they refused to work with Democrats in a serious way to fix the health care crisis looming over the American people. Open enrollment starts in just 2 weeks, and Americans will be forced to choose health care plans that will send costs skyrocketing. As we speak, families are receiving letters for their new health insurance rates. And more states are opening their window shopping period for what health insurance will look like next year. With open enrollment around the corner, Republicans cannot continue to kick this can down the road. It's happening now. The health care crisis is now. The public agrees. Democrats agree. The White House privately admits it. Even some Republicans in Congress know it's the truth. And yet Republican leaders, especially Speaker Johnson, continue to dig in. The Speaker has now kept the House Republicans on vacation for 3 weeks, as if they can make the issue go away by letting House Republicans hide. Well, the American people don't have time for Republican inaction. This morning, let me show my Republican colleagues precisely what will happen if they continue to insist on no negotiation. Let's take a look at this chart. These are real numbers. These are the actual numbers for New York's health care exchange for the average couple in Plattsburgh, New York. This is in the heart of New York's rural North Country and its Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's district. Right now, with the ACA tax credits, this health care plan, a bronze plan, is $282 a month. That's still a lot for a family, a working family. It's a lot of money. It ends up, coming close to $4,000, $3,500 a year. But that's nothing compared to what will happen if these credits expire. If the tax credits expire, the same health care plan will go up to nearly $1,700 a month next year. $1,700. $1,400 extra every single month, a 495% increase. For the average family or small business owner or farmer in upstate rural New York, an extra $1,400 a month on health care is financial ruin. That's $15,000 a year. How are people, even people making decent money, going to afford that? And this is not just true of New York. This is similar to what's happening in all the states around the country. And every day now, people are getting notices. And we're getting close to November 1st, where people are going to have to decide, do they give up health insurance altogether and watch their people, their children, their spouses suffer? So I say to my Republican colleagues, especially in the House, you can't hide from your constituents forever. The American people expect Congress to fix this health care crisis, because otherwise people will go bankrupt, people will get sick, people will lose insurance, people will fail to get the care they need, and more people will needlessly die. Republicans know this, and yet neither the Trump administration nor Republicans in Congress are even pretending to try and solve the health care crisis. Democrats are ready and willing to negotiate with Republicans. We want to work in a serious way to reopen the government and spare tens of millions of Americans the threat of financial ruin. Financial ruin, $15,000 more or even more a year. On RIFs, Mr. President, last week the Trump administration vindictively fired thousands of federal workers in a mistaken attempt to try and hurt the Democrats in this shutdown. Let's be very clear. Nobody forced the administration to do these firings. They did it because they wanted to, period. They did it on their own. This decision, which they made, Trump made and his administration made, vote, was so callous, so unnecessary, so deeply hurtful to hardworking Americans, and yesterday we learned it's even worse than they thought. Yesterday we learned the administration admitted in court that nearly 800 employees at HHS were laid off in error. Not only are they mean and vicious and uncaring, they're incompetent. It's despicable. How careless, how incompetent is this administration? How cruel are they that they'll throw away people's livelihoods like this with sort of the flick of a pen without even examining what's happening? These accidental firings show you how stupid it is for Russell Vought to treat federal workers as political pawns. It's destructive, it's cruel, it's vicious, and it will backfire in the eyes of the public. That's why even Republicans in Congress have urged the administration not to take vengeance out on federal workers. The administration should reverse every single firing from last week and should stop playing politics with people's livelihoods and their lives. They should instead get serious about negotiation with Congress to end this shutdown at once. And finally, on the young Republicans, Mr. President, it's a frightening time in America as we witness the rise of political violence and violent rhetoric. Yesterday, as most people now know, Politico published a story about thousands upon thousands of text exchanges reported from prominent members of the young Republican organization across the country, showing racist, sexist, outright violent language. This wasn't a casual mention. This happened thousands and thousands and thousands of times from a group called the Young Republican Organization. They made jokes about Hitler, about gas chambers. They talked about torture. They made jokes about sexual assault. They used almost every racist obscenity, including the N-word. Now, no matter who it comes from, right or left, all of us have an obligation to denounce vile rhetoric like this. But a full day after these texts have leaked, most Republican leaders haven't said a peep about these gas chamber and Hitler jokes coming from the young Republicans. Too many Republicans seem willing to call out violent rhetoric only when it comes from the other side. But these same Republicans never seem willing to denounce it when it comes from their own ranks. And that's dangerous. Violent political rhetoric is an attack on everyone. And Vice President Vance yesterday, amazingly, seemed to excuse these vile texts as just a college group chat and refused to join the pearl clutching. That is outrageous. Leave it to J.D. Vance to preach about violent political rhetoric only when it serves his interests, and then ignore or excuse it when it comes from his own side. The hypocrisy is disgusting and shameful coming from supposed national leaders. If you don't like hate speech, you don't like all hate speech, not just hate speech from political groups you don't like. The real test is to denounce it from groups that might be on your side of the aisle, young Republican organization. And let's be clear, these aren't random college kids. These are individuals who work in government, who've held positions of leadership at the state level, and one person in the chat is actually an elected official. Of course, some Republicans at the lower level have spoken out, and good for them, they should do so. But where's everyone else? Where are all our Republican colleagues? Where's President Trump? Here's what needs to happen. Every single Republican leader from the president on down has to condemn these attacks immediately, or all their cries about hate speech seem to be one-sided or bogus. The people who made these vile comments should be out of a job and never allowed to work in politics again. And both sides must make it clear to the entire country that vile rhetoric like this is unacceptable. I yield the floor.